Okay. I
Okay,
love
sorry.
this chapter. I want to read it over and over
Mhm.
again. There is so much in it. And, again, we've talked about this before, but the desire is strong in me to just like get it. But it's like, you just be with it.
Mhm.
And what struck me was with Cora, like the two scenarios, she comes in because of her panic attacks.
Mhm.
And there are ways she's managing. She's been
Mhm.
managing.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there are ways that we can continue to manage it. And those ways that we compensate and avoid and protect feel so temporary and feel like lack of agency.
Mhm.
And then the idea of standing in an expansive place and like imagining, I mean, even if we don't feel God's grace, but to imagine what it would be like for him to delight in us,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then bringing our panic to that
Mhm.
expansive
Mhm.
space
Mhm. Mhm.
with others there,
Mhm.
that feels like and it is a completely different experience.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it is. And I think one of the other things too that is, back to the toddler image,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the whole notion of how toddlers. I mean, I'm sure that this is the case for some who just one day they just get up and walk, but most toddlers that I've been around who are in this stage,
Mm-hmm.
it is they take one step and fall down,
They're
and
clumsy,
then
right?
yeah, yeah, and they take one step, fall down, so then they're going to go back to like surfing along the edge of the couch. You're just going to always have that thing, and then and it takes time to practice and incorporate this. And the same was true for Cora. It's not a matter of, oh, she has this experience of telling her story, in one session with this community, and then everything is
Right.
packaged and wrapped
Mm-hmm.
and we're done.
Mm-hmm.
This continues to be something. The woman that I mentioned that, in our, this is a thing where it is a thing that we're practicing over months because we continue to be, we live in a world. It's like if you're living in Ukraine and just because you're working on the trauma that you've experienced, I mean, like it's still going on.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that are still happening that you still have to continue to work on. And so the practice of that is just like a toddler. We have to continue to practice this over and over again. And one of the things that we talk about in our confessional communities is reminding people that Jesus is not impatient with the speed with which we are, becoming like him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's not worried so much about our speed and making benchmarks as much as he wants us to be in the game doing the work.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, and like when you were talking about hope, like I could feel that in my chest. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if we're not taught to pay attention to that, or if that is damaging when we're kids to feel anything, then we push that away. But just to feel that and not even fully know what that is, what that means, but just to feel it and be aware of it, those are all building blocks, right? Like
Right. Right.
to yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And so my encouragement for folks, especially as they do this activity, is to be willing to put some effort and energy, like as you're saying, Amy, to practice like paying attention to this,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to give God's grace an opportunity to enter into your felt experience. We've talked here before about Mark's gospel and the rendition that he gives of Jesus' encounter with who we call the rich young ruler, and how Jesus looked at him and loved him, and the ruler missed the look.
Mm-hmm.
He's not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
There's something, the look comes and he misses the look. There's something about the look that perhaps maybe he didn't see, or maybe it's uncomfortable for him. There's something about that that is
Mm-hmm.
significant. And in the same way, my hope is for our listeners to take the time to practice, take a breath, slow down, write the screenplay,
Yeah.
and then let yourself enter into and practice the screenplay. Again, it comes back to your work, Pepper, about how much time, effort, energy that you spend imagining what it means to be a grocery delivery boy long before you walk onto the stage.
Because writing the screenplay is imagining, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's and then we can wrap, but and it's like it's acting as if it's true, which is imagining that it is true and believing that it is true.
Right.
Yeah.
To believe is to be living, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to live in light, and it's an act of trust, which gets back to the very first verse in this section, right? Because we've been justified by faith, but we're trusting. It is our act of trusting. It's all we got.
Okay, I'm struck by one more thing, because suffering, right, sounds really big to me. And but it's like grief. We experience it every day in some measure. And so I'm thinking, okay, when our audience, not our listeners, hear that, are they like, well, I don't suffer like so and so does. But we all experience suffering in some level, right?
Right, and I think evil loves nothing more than for us to say, I don't suffer like Job suffers. I don't suffer like the people in Ukraine or Gaza or in Southeast DC.
So just stop.
So there's quit your complaining.
Right.
And I think what we would find would be that if we were to pause and be open to where we actually are suffering, we would find that things begin to change for us in ways that we otherwise wouldn't have imagined, including our greater capacity to be even more deeply connected to those that we think are suffering more than us.
Yeah.
With that, good job, guys.
Wrap.
Thank you. Yes.
It's a wrap. All right.
Yep.
Well, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
We will.
All right. Love you.
Love you.
Love you too.